My family kicked me out for not giving my lazy brother $37,000. But when I discovered, they accused me of theft all over town. I cut contact forever and left them speechless. I'm 19 years old. I'm in college and working part-time at a coffee shop near campus. And I need to tell this story because basically my entire family turned their backs on me for not handing over 4 years of my life to my brother. I mean, when I say they kicked me out of the house, I'm being literal, with my stuff in trash bags and all the drama you can imagine. But let me start from the beginning, because if I don't, you're not going to understand why this still has me so angry. Since I was like 15, maybe almost 16, I started working. My first job was at a supermarket bagging groceries on weekends. I made almost nothing, but it was something, you know? And the thing is, I always had this dream of starting my own business. I don't know exactly what kind of business, but I knew I wanted to be my own boss and not depend on anyone. So, every cent I earned, literally every cent, I saved it. My friends would spend their money on video games, going out, new clothes, and there I was saving everything. In a savings account I opened with my mom when I turned 16. During these 4 years, I worked at that supermarket, then at a fast food restaurant, then at the coffee shop where I am now, and I also did random jobs like pet sitting or mowing neighbors' lawns. Everything. Absolutely everything I earned went straight into that account. There were months where I was working like 30 hours a week on top of school, and now on top of college, and I never complained because I had a clear goal. My family was always, let's say, complicated in that aspect of expectations. I have an older brother, Ethan, who's 24 years old, and he's basically my parents' golden child even though he doesn't do anything productive with his life. Ethan graduated from college like 2 years ago, has a degree in some business or marketing thing, I think. But since then, he hasn't worked a single day. He lives at my parents' house, doesn't pay rent, doesn't help with anything, spends his time playing video, games in his room and going out with his friends like he's still 18. And my parents, especially my mom, always have an excuse for him. That he's looking for the perfect job, that the job market is tough, that he needs time to find himself. You know, all those phrases people use when they don't want to admit their son is lazy. And look, it's not that I hate my brother or anything, but honestly, it's frustrating to see how they treat him compared to me. Me working since I was 15 and him doing nothing. But somehow I'm the one who has to sacrifice for the family. So like 3 months ago, Ethan found this apartment he loved. And when I say apartment, I mean a super expensive place in a really nice area of the city, like with a gym, pool, the whole thing. The deposit and first month's rent were like $6,000, or maybe a little more. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was crazy for someone who doesn't have a job. And obviously Ethan doesn't have that money because, well, he doesn't work. But in his head, it made perfect sense to move there because supposedly he was going to start seriously looking for work once he had his own space, or something like that was his logic. My parents were excited about the idea. My mom saying things like, this was exactly what Ethan needed to mature and be independent. And me there thinking, really? Moving to an apartment he can't afford is going to make him more independent? So one night, it was a Tuesday, I think, my parents told me they needed to talk to me. I sat down in the living room and there they both were, with Ethan too, and I already knew something weird was happening because my dad had that serious face he makes when he's going to say something important. My mom started with the whole thing about how family supports each other, that when you have the opportunity to help another you should do it, all that family speech stuff that sounds nice in theory. And then my dad got straight to the point and said, we need you to give your saved money to Ethan for the apartment deposit. Just like that. No beating around the bush. I sat there processing what I'd just heard, because honestly, I thought it was a joke at first. I asked them if they were serious, and my mom said yes, that I had saved a lot of money these years and it was time to be a good brother and help Ethan start his adult life. I tried to stay calm and explain to them that that money, which was $37,000 to be exact, I had saved over 4 years working like crazy to start my own business someday. I told them that every dollar in that account represented hours of work, sacrifices, not going out with my friends or buying things I wanted. My dad interrupted me and said I was young, that I had my whole life to save again, but that Ethan needed this now. And that's when Ethan opened his mouth, because he'd been quiet this whole time, and said something like he had always supported me when I was younger, that he'd helped me with homework and stuff like that, and now it was my turn to return the favor. And I thought, what favor are you talking about? The times you let me copy your math homework when you were 16? That's worth $37,000. I told them no, that I was sorry, but I wasn't going to give him my money. And that's when things got ugly. My mom started with the heavy guilt trip, saying I was being selfish, that I only thought about myself. What kind of brother was I? My dad said he was disappointed in me, that he'd raised an ungrateful son who didn't value his family. Ethan started yelling that I was an asshole and that I'd always been the favorite anyway, which is ironic coming from him. And I just got up and went to my room because I felt like, if I stayed there, I was going to say things I'd regret. The next 7 days were hell. Literal hell. My parents wouldn't leave me alone for a second. Every meal was an opportunity to pressure me. Every time I passed through the living room, there were comments. My mom would cry, saying I was breaking her heart, that she couldn't believe her son was so cruel. My dad stopped talking to me except to tell me to reconsider my decision. Ethan would send me messages all day saying that because of me he was going to lose the apartment, that the owner had already accepted his application and the only thing missing was the money. I tried to focus on my classes and my work, but it was impossible. I'd get home, and there they were again with the same thing. I tried to explain to them 1,000 times that that money was for my future, that it wasn't fair to ask me to just give it away like that, but they didn't want to listen. For them, I was just being selfish, and that was it. Finally, like a week after that first conversation, my dad gave me an ultimatum. We were in the dining room. It was a Sunday morning, and I was drinking coffee, trying to wake up to go to work, and he came in and said, "You have until Friday to decide. Either you give your brother the money or you leave this house." My mom was there and didn't say anything, just nodded, like backing up what he was saying. And I just sat there looking at them, trying to see if they were joking, but their faces were completely serious. I asked them if they were really going to kick me out of the house, my house where I'd lived my whole life, for not giving my saved money to my adult brother who could perfectly well get a job and save himself. My dad said it was my decision, that they weren't kicking me out, that I was choosing to leave by not helping the family. The logic was insane, but that's how they thought. That week was the worst of my life up to that point. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat well, I was anxious and angry all the time. I called my best friend, who's named, well, his name doesn't matter, but I've known him since middle school, and I told him everything. He told me it was crazy what my parents were doing and offered me his couch if I needed a place to stay. I also talked to some other friends, and they all told me the same thing, that what they were asking of me wasn't fair, that I'd worked for that money and nobody had the right to demand it from me. But the horrible part was that part of me felt guilty, you know? Like maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I should help my brother, even if it was unfair. I guess that's what happens when your family makes you feel bad for setting boundaries. Friday came, and I still hadn't changed my mind. I got home after work, like at 7 p.m., and my parents were waiting for me in the living room. My dad asked me what my decision was, and I told him I wasn't going to give my money. He just nodded, without showing any emotion, and said I had 1 hour to pack my things and get out of the house. My mom started crying, but she didn't say anything to stop it either. Ethan was in his room, I think. I didn't see him. I went up to my room and started putting my stuff in bags, clothes, my laptop, important documents, photos, whatever I could carry. Honestly, I don't remember much of that moment because I was like in shock, like I couldn't believe this was really happening. My hands were shaking while I packed, and I felt like I was going to throw up at any moment. I left that house with 3 big bags and my college backpack. My dad didn't help me carry anything, just stood at the door watching me leave. My mom was still crying but didn't lift a finger either. I put everything in my car. A 2018 Honda Civic I'd bought used with my own money like 2 years ago and drove straight to my friend's house. He and his roommate welcomed me and told me I could stay as long as I needed. That night I slept on their couch, or rather I didn't sleep because I stayed awake thinking about everything that had happened, wondering if I'd done the right thing, if it was really worth losing my family over money. But then I'd think about those 4 years of work, about all the times I'd sacrificed to save that money, and I knew I couldn't just give it to Ethan just because my parents demanded it. Like 3 days after I left, Ethan sent me a long message, like a complete testament, telling me it was my fault he'd lost the apartment, that because of my selfishness now, he had to stay at our parents' house, that I'd ruined his life plans, and he was never going to forgive me. He told me I was a shitty brother, and he hoped everything went badly for me. I read it, and the only thing I felt was more anger because, really, I ruined his life? Not him for not getting a job like a normal adult person? I didn't respond because I knew it wouldn't do any good. Anything I said would be used against me. I decided I needed to legally protect my money because I was afraid my parents would try something weird with the savings account. Turns out my mom was a co-holder on the account because I'd opened it when I was a minor, and technically she could access the money. I searched on Google and found a lawyer who did free consultations for students. Went to see him and explained the whole situation. He told me to immediately transfer the money to a new account only in my name, at a different bank, and to keep all records of my deposits as evidence that it was my money. He also suggested I document everything that was happening in case things got worse. I did exactly that. Opened a new account at another bank and moved all my money there that same day. I felt a little calmer, knowing that at least my money was safe. Living on my friend's couch was fine at first, but obviously, it wasn't sustainable long term. I started looking for places to live and also a job that paid better. I found a position at a tech company doing basic technical support. It wasn't anything glamorous, but they paid almost double what I was making at the coffee shop. They gave me the job like 2 weeks after applying. I guess I got lucky. Or maybe I was so desperate I made a good impression at the interview. With that new income, I was able to find a small studio near campus, nothing fancy at all, like a room with a kitchenette and a bathroom, but it was mine, and that was what mattered. The rent was like $800 a month, plus utilities, and although it was a lot of money, I knew I could manage it with my new job. Like 2 months passed since I left the house, and suddenly I started getting messages from my parents. First, it was my mom, sending me texts saying she missed me, that the house felt empty without me, asking how I was. She didn't mention anything about the money or about what had happened, just acted like everything was normal. Then my dad also started sending me messages, drier than my mom's, but basically asking the same thing. Ethan sent me a message too, saying that maybe he'd been too hard on me and we should talk. And me there reading all this and thinking, do they really think that's how things get fixed, without even a real apology or acknowledging what they did? I didn't respond at first because honestly, I didn't know what to say. Like 3 months in, a family friend, a lady who's known my parents for years, contacted me and asked me to meet her for coffee. I thought it was weird, but I agreed because I'd always liked her. We met at a coffee shop near campus, and she got straight to the point. She told me that my parents were telling everyone that I had abandoned the family, that I was an ingrate who had left the house because I didn't want to follow rules, and that I had stolen money from them before leaving. Yeah, you heard that right. They were saying I had robbed them. I sat there unable to believe it, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. This lady told me she didn't believe them, that she'd known me since I was little and knew I wasn't like that, but that she wanted to warn me that my parents were doing this all over the community. Apparently, several neighbors and acquaintances had already asked them about me, and my parents were telling them this completely distorted version of the story. That was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It's one thing that they kicked me out of the house, quite another that they're destroying my reputation with lies. I thanked the lady for letting me know, and went home feeling worse than ever. That night I decided I needed to cut contact completely. I blocked my parents' numbers, blocked Ethan, blocked any relatives who could be used to contact me. I deleted the social media where they followed me or made myself private. Basically, I decided that if they were going to treat me like that, they didn't deserve to have access to my life at all. It's been like 4 months since then. I'm living in my studio, working at my new job, which I honestly like quite a bit more than I expected, and I'm still saving money, although obviously not at the same rate, because now I have to pay rent and all my stuff. My savings account is intact. Nobody has touched that money except me for moving, and I still have my plans to eventually start that business, even though now it's a bit more complicated. I made new friends at work, people who don't know this whole story and who just see me as a normal 9-year-old trying to get ahead. And honestly, it's weird because on one hand I feel freer than ever. Like I don't have to deal with my family's toxicity or their unfair expectations. But on the other hand, there are days where I feel completely alone and wonder if I did the right thing. Sometimes I think about what it would be like if I'd given them the money. I'd probably still be living in that house. I'd have a relationship with my family. I wouldn't be struggling to pay rent every month. But I'd also be resentful, angry at myself for letting myself be manipulated, and I wouldn't have those $37,000 that represent years of my effort. And Ethan would probably still be unemployed, living in that expensive apartment he can't maintain, and eventually would have to go back to my parents anyway. So, yeah, I think I did the right thing. It wasn't the easy decision, not at all, but it was the right one for me. Last week, one of my coworkers asked me if I was going to see my family for Thanksgiving coming up. I told him no, that we were estranged, and he asked me if that made me sad. And I thought about that for a moment, and the truth is, it does make me sad, but not as much as I thought it would. I miss the idea of having a family that supports you, but I don't miss the reality of what my family was. I don't miss feeling like the second-class son. I don't miss seeing my brother get rewarded for doing nothing while I worked myself to exhaustion. So, I guess I'm at peace with my decision, or at least I'm learning to be. And that's enough for now.